Welcome to Outside Views, where we delve into the often overlooked yet profoundly impactful shifts shaping our world. And today we're unpacking a topic that has quietly yet dramatically reshaped the daily lives of millions across the United Kingdom. The enduring influence of Brexit on the very act of British grocery shopping, a saga unfolding from 2016 right up to this present moment. It's a narrative far more intricate and, dare I say, captivating than one might initially assume for something as mundane as a trip to the supermarket. Yes, its tendrils reach into every trolley, every shelf, and indeed every household budget. Remember those halcyon days before the referendum, when the shelves seemed perpetually abundant, brimming with an almost dizzying array of produce from across the European Union, a seamless flow of goods that many of the people in the UK took entirely for granted. That era, characterized by a highly efficient just-in-time supply chain, meant that fresh fruits, vibrant vegetables, and a plethora of other perishable items could traverse borders with remarkable speed and minimal bureaucratic friction, arriving at their local stores often just hours after being harvested or processed. However, the seismic decision to leave the European Union in 2016, followed by the formal departure and the subsequent implementation of new trade agreements, or indeed the absence thereof, fundamentally recalibrated this intricate dance of supply and demand, introducing a cascade of complexities that continue to reverberate through the aisles of every British grocery establishment. One of the most immediate and palpable consequences, felt keenly by every consumer, has been the undeniable ascent of food prices, a persistent inflationary pressure that has made the weekly shop a noticeably more expensive endeavor. This surge is multifaceted, stemming in part from the depreciation of sterling post-referendum, which instantly rendered imports more costly, alongside the introduction of new customs declarations, checks, and regulatory hurdles that add both time and expense to the movement of goods across what were once frictionless borders. And consider, for instance, the delicate balance of importing fresh produce, a sector where the UK relies heavily on European partners, especially during colder months when domestic production cannot meet demand. Any delay at ports, any additional paperwork translates directly into higher operational costs for suppliers and inevitably higher prices for you, the shopper. Beyond the financial sting, the very availability of certain products has become a recurring point of contention and occasional frustration, with instances of specific fresh produce, from tomatoes to cucumbers, experiencing noticeable shortages on supermarket shelves. And these disruptions are not merely anecdotal. They are a direct manifestation of the increased friction in the supply chain, where the once fluid movement of goods is now punctuated by new administrative requirements, by veterinary certificates for animal products, and a general increase in the complexity of cross-border trade. The just-in-time model, so efficient in its pre-Brexit incarnation, proved to be inherently vulnerable to these new impediments, forcing retailers to adapt by increasing stockpiling, diversifying their sourcing where possible, and even in some cases, exploring alternative, often more distant markets, which again typically incurs greater cost and logistical challenge. Furthermore, a critical yet often less visible impact has been the exacerbation of labor shortages across various vital segments of the food industry, from agricultural harvesting to food processing and the crucial logistics sector. The departure of many EU workers who historically filled a significant proportion of these roles has left gaping voids, leading to unharvested crops rotting in fields, reduced capacity in processing plants, and a scarcity of lorry drivers to transport goods, all of which contribute to higher costs and ultimately less choice for the consumer. And this dearth of skilled and seasonal labor has compelled businesses to offer higher wages to attract staff, a necessary expenditure that, while beneficial for the workers themselves, inevitably contributes to the upward trajectory of food prices. In response to these evolving challenges, British supermarkets and independent grocers alike have embarked on a strategic re-evaluation of their operations, with many prioritizing the diversification of their supply chains, seeking to reduce their reliance on single sources and building greater resilience into their procurement processes. There has been a discernible push towards buying British and supporting domestic producers, a commendable shift that, while bolstering local economies, cannot entirely offset the vast array of products traditionally imported, especially those that thrive in different climates or require specialized agricultural conditions. Consumers too have subtly, or in some cases overtly, altered their shopping habits, with a growing number expressing concerns about the rising cost of imported goods and a stated preference for made-in-Britain products, even if it means adjusting their usual brand loyalties. The return of the big shop, a more infrequent yet comprehensive grocery haul, has also been observed, as households seek to consolidate trips and budget more effectively in the face of escalating costs, moving away from the more frequent, smaller top-up visits. Beyond the immediate economic and logistical shifts, Brexit has also initiated a complex process of divergence in food standards and regulations as the UK begins to chart its own course outside the comprehensive framework of EU law. While the initial approach largely involved retaining existing EU laws, there's now a clear trajectory towards independent regulatory decisions, exemplified by differences in permitted food additives, pesticide residue limits, and approaches to novel foods or gene-edited crops. And this divergence, while offering the UK the theoretical autonomy to tailor regulations to specific needs, also introduced new complexities for businesses trading with the EU, requiring separate compliance measures and potentially creating non-tariff barriers that further complicate the movement of food. But at the moment they are talking about some alignment. Well, we will see what happens in the end. The recent agreement aimed at reducing red tape for certain food imports and exports, particularly between Great Britain and Northern Ireland, represents an ongoing effort to mitigate some of these frictions, yet the landscape remains dynamic and subject to continuous negotiation and adaptation. For the independent grocery stores, often the lifeblood of local communities, the impact has been particularly acute, as their smaller scale can make it more challenging to absorb increased import costs or navigate new regulatory requirements compared, of course, to larger supermarket chains. And these smaller businesses, while perhaps more agile in sourcing from local producers, often rely on a diverse range of imported specialty goods to cater to their clientele, making them particularly vulnerable to disruptions in their international supply chain. Ultimately, the enduring influence of Brexit on British grocery shopping is a multifaceted narrative of adaptation, resilience, and ongoing evolution, a story that continues to unfold with every price increase, every momentarily empty shelf, and every new strategy adopted by retailers and consumers alike. It's a stark reminder that geopolitical shifts, even those seemingly distant from your everyday lives, possess an uncanny ability to permeate the most fundamental aspects of your existence, right down to what you put in your shopping baskets. And as we navigate this ever-changing landscape, one thing remains abundantly clear. The act of buying groceries in Britain is no longer quite the same as it was before 2016. It has become a subtle yet profound reflection of a nation recalibrating its place in the global economic tapestry. So thank you for joining me on Outside Views for this deep dive into the enduring impact of Brexit on British grocery shopping. And I encourage you to share your own experiences and observations in the comments below, as this conversation is far from over.